All right, I guess I'm going to take over. Robin, you want to, I'll let you introduce Linda after I run through some quick goodness here that we want to share. We always start the webinar. First off, welcome everybody. Always special welcomes to the first-time attendees of our webinar. We hope we knock your socks off with the information today that Linda's going to graciously go over and share. And also to our webinar alumni, thank you for always showing up. Without you guys continuously show up, it really motivates us to always go above and beyond what we do and what we deliver. So first thing I want to share with everyone, from wherever company you're from, whether you're a project manager or not, if you know project managers, we really want to focus in on Omnicron's PDU library. It's very amazing. It's pretty incredible, the webinars that we've put together this year, that literally all you have to do, if you go out to Omnicron's website, let's see if I can pull this up here really quick for you guys, because I really want to walk you through it so I can show you how easy it is to get additional PDUs, and not only the PDUs, but the relevant knowledge of what's going on in the workplace today. So I'm going to slide this over here really quick. And you can get there just from omnicron.com. The direct link will be in the deck, though, that we should share with everybody. And if you come out here, this is Omnicron's website, and the free PDU thing will be right there. But if you scroll down, here's all these beautiful PDU webinars that we so wonderfully captured and put on our website for you. As you can see, we cover every area of the PMI triangle, the leadership section, the strategic, business management, and technical. So as you go through here, I would encourage you, don't pick one, pick them all, because they're all excellent. And if you just click right here, you watch your video of the webinar, come down here, get your PDU. You just want to click on this really simple button, and it's going to pull up a little bot for you, and it's going to ask you to plug in some information, answer a few questions. And what will happen is once you answer, it's like 5 questions. Once you answer those, then Heather is going to actually send you a certificate of completion, just like you'll get today for being on the webinar today. So you can keep it for your records. I know a lot of people print out their certificates of completion because they like to collect all the proof of knowledge that they've gone through in life. So Anna makes it for an easy upload into the PMI triangle. So definitely take advantage of the incredible PDU webinars on Omnicron's website. So in addition to that, we said, we like to give things away on our webinars, make them fun. It encourages all you busy people who got a ton of things you're multitasking at every day, but it really encourages you to stay, and as long as you can. We want you to stay for the whole hour. But we will be giving out 3 autographed books from Linda today. She will kindly autograph them, and we will be sending them out to 3 winners. The only catch is, the only way you can get into the raffle is you really got to participate in today's program. Okay, the more you participate, the more value the webinar will be for those in the future who watch it as well. So please do your best, have fun, participate with us, play along with us, and have a good time. And here comes the most exciting part. Everyone wins today. Okay, normally we have only one winner, but today we decided we're going to let everyone win who's participating in the webinar, as long as you registered. Omnicron has pretty much an internationally acclaimed negotiations course. It attracts people from all over the world. From Russia, Poland, the UK, you name it, Africa, the States. When I say internationally acclaimed, it's internationally acclaimed. I can't explain it any better than that. It's negotiations for business leaders. It also comes with 20 PDUs for the PMPs on the line who are lacking in their PDUs. It's a good way for you to get a quick 20 PDUs. But we're going to give you guys, everybody, a promotional code at the end of the webinar to get a significant discount on the negotiations course coming up. I know you can read some of the stories there from our recent grads. I know I personally took the course when it first was launched by Omnicron and the Black Swan Group. Literally, I honestly didn't even come back for the second day. I had something going on. Oh, I was going to buy a new car with what I learned from the first day. So what happened is I went out and bought a new car, and with some of the skills I learned, I mean, it helped me save almost $8,000 on the purchase of a new car. I know Robin, you know, when she was first exposed to the content that's delivered in this course, I know it helped her save over $10,000 on a software package. So not only all those good things from leaders and people in charge of multi-million-dollar projects, you got to have these skills to negotiate to your team. You got to have these skills to negotiate on behalf of your team. The only thing this course is going to do is elevate you. Okay, so it's an amazing course. We want to encourage you to take advantage of the promotion that we're going to share with you guys today. And then, hold on one second. Oh, you know what? I think it's Linda's turn. Enjoy your conversation, Linda. It's your turn. I'm going to hand it over to you, Robin. I'll let you introduce Linda. And thank you, everybody, for listening to me today.
That's great. Thanks very much, Brad. And I'm here on 2 different computers. We're definitely having system issues today. So that's good, though. It all worked a little bit. Yay for redundancy. So, guys, this is Robin Burrow. I'm the president for Omnicron. Thanks for coming to today's webinar. I'm sorry if you feel slightly overwhelmed by my email jubilation, but I got you here. So I accomplished my goal. And the reason is I really needed you to meet Dr. Linda Sharkey. She's the author of over 3 books. Her pedigree and background as an HR learning development CLO, her history is with Hewlett Packard and with GE. Linda was there when they were building best practices. And to have her speak to us today from this wealth of knowledge of how the economy, the way that we work together and collaborate has changed over the last 3 decades, you couldn't miss this. So we're more than excited to present to you my friend, my personal friend. She's also really fun at a party.
Maybe what champagne will do, Robin.
She's a good party date. Right? So keep that in mind too. Author and good party date, Dr. Linda Sharkey. So it's all yours, Linda.
Okay, great. Now, you know, as Heather, you're trying to bring up the slides, you know, and tell the group what really caused us to write this book and do this research. You may or may not know, but I have a weekly radio show, and on that radio show, I have the privilege of interviewing lots of thought leaders, CEOs, major academics, and in addition to my consulting practice and my co-author, Morag Barrett's consulting practice, we did some research on, because we had this feeling that there were some significant changes afoot. And lo and behold, there were. And we focused in on really everybody else is talking about technology. And yes, technology is absolutely a driver, but you know what? Technology has always been a driver, and particularly at the turn of the centuries. Let's just look at the first turn of the century. You know, the last one, we got electricity, we got telephones, we got cars. I mean, these were significant changes, and there are significant changes this time around as well. And you can advance the slide, Heather, if you don't mind. Significant changes this time around as well. And we really don't know where this is going to be leading, but we've seen the massive demographic shifts. And you know, demographic shifts have always been here. How do you think people migrated around the world? But now, because of global organizations, because of globalization, because of easy transportation, because of geopolitical concerns, demographics have shifted dramatically. I don't know if many of you know this, but in 1965, the United States was 95% white. in 2018, the United States is 38% ethnic minorities of some sort, and it's trending upward. And in fact, I was just reading a statistic the other day that said in 2040, the majority will be the minority. And the world is going that way. We're integrating it at rates that we've never seen before. And digitization, of course. When we first wrote the book, it was kind of amazing because, we had all these predictions of where technology was going to be. And not only in an 8-month period of time has technology gotten there, but it's advanced even beyond that. And, I was just flying back from London. I was in Dubai giving a speech, and it was so interesting because Prince Louis was just born, and they were saying by the time Prince Louis hits 80 years old, he will have a robot as a personal trainer. He will not get into any car. He'll get into some kind of craft that will fly him around the world to places where he wants to go. He really will be able to beam himself up, Scotty, as they say in some of the Star Wars movies. And the world is going to be a completely different place. And the interesting thing is we really don't know specifically where this is all headed. But that's not the story. The story is really this massive change and the speed of change. And this is what is making people crazy. Next slide, please. Heather, can we have the next slide?
Yeah, working on it.
Okay. This is really too bad. I wish I did not understand this when we first set this up. But what has really happened for people is that they have faced into this massive change, and people just don't know how to deal with it. And let's just bring up the poll. So what I say is that a lot of people are sort of stuck in the mud. And you look around at the politics. It's go back. Let's go back to where we were. Let's ignore what's really happening. Let's not pay attention to this because maybe it'll go away. Oh, all these new entrants into the workplace. So what I'd like to do is ask you guys, what do you see going around you? And how do you know if not you personally are stuck in the mud, but people around you or your organization? And here's what's so interesting. I mean, you'll hear all this language. Let's go back. Let's make things great again. People are confused about how to deal with all this rapid change. Or people are angry, and there's a lot of anger out there. People are angry, and they're expressing it in a lot of different ways, or they're just simply ignoring the changes and hoping that they go away. So what I'd like you to do is just, what do you see out there of those 4 choices? What do you see as the most prevailing?
Right now, the number one, it looks like they're confused about how to deal with rapid change. That's the leading one.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. And I think that is universal. No matter where we go, that is what people are really confronting. And honestly, that is why we put together our 6 factors. Because the 6 factors are all about the people. So what we say is, can this digital revolution drive a human revolution? And our view is, from our research, is it is driving a human revolution. It is more about the people than ever before. So let's go to the next slide. Is there any way, Robin, that I can, Heather, that I can advance these slides, or do you have to do it?
I believe I have to do it, and for whatever reason, it's just giving me such a hard time this morning.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate.
While we're working through that, I'm going to host your slides on Omnicron's website and give everybody a link. So
Okay.
keep going as if we are as agile as we need to be. Okay.
Great.
So
Good.
we'll be there soon with everybody.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's get past that. So really what's happened here is in the 20th century, and we started looking at this and we said, what's the difference between what's been going on in the 20th century and what's going to go on in the 21st century? And we've really said in the past, and if you think about it, the human was the extension of the machine. And in the 21st century, it is really going to be the human and the integration of technology. And what is fascinating here is that ethics is going to become an incredible issue. And we see this already with how people are using data, how Alexa is actually turned on all the time. And what you really don't realize is that they are picking up information. Information is being picked up all the time about you, about us, about where we drive, where we go. And it's incredible. And technology is going to be, and already is, embedded into the human body. And this causes really serious concerns that we all need to pay attention to. And the rules and the regulations of the road are based on the 20th century and on an industrial model. And the industrial model is going away. It's not going to be here 50 years from now. And we're in that sort of transition, that morphing stage of where organizations are just going to change. The big behemoth organizations are really not going to be here anymore. So let's go to the next slide. The rules of the road have definitely changed. So this is where we came up with our 6 strategies for how we deal with how we transform our organizations for the 21st century. And the 6 factors I'm going to start with, obviously, the first one is leadership. And there's no question, and we can just stay on this slide if we would. Leadership, has been the most written about, the most studied factor in the world. If you Google leadership, you will find that there are more books written about leadership than in almost any other topic. And, we all know that the servant leader, the leader that's focused around people, is the leader that's been successful. But in the 20th century, that was not the model. Command and control was still the fallback. Now, however, if you want to be a successful leader in the 21st century, you absolutely must be about your people. You must be about them and not you. The pyramid organization is going away. It's going to be flat. You have to get used to the fact that your influence is going to extend beyond your immediate team and yourself. You're going to have teams that are global. You're going to have teams that adjust. Some people may be working in your group for a 6-month period of time, an 8-month period of time, and then move on to another team. And it's your ability to influence and to work effectively with others. It's not about you, and it's not about making you look good, and it's not about how you're going to interact with your higher ups. It's about how you make your teams effective and what you do to pay attention to them and give your teams what they need to be successful. And that's a critical difference. And now it's stuff we've always said. I mean, this is not really new, but the fact is that it is an imperative in this next century. And the other issue here is culture. And the more I read, the more I study, and I happen to do my PhD and research all around culture, so I'm steeped in that. But our research for this book indicated that, well, in the 20th century, culture was, I understand there's people on the phone, on the session from IBM, it was more conformity, it was more about fitting in, being like everybody else. But now, culture is really about purpose, it's about values, it's about potential, and having an organization where people can really thrive. And if we could go to the next 2 polls, how would you describe your leaders in your organization? And then we're going to talk about your organizational culture. So how would you describe the leaders in your organization? Are they struggling to keep up and you don't have much confidence in them? And by the way, a lot of engagement polls indicate that more senior leaders, people are less confident about them than others? Or are your leaders really innovative change leaders, people who have the ability to embrace change, get ahead of it, are positive, are problem solvers? Or does your organization have really inconsistent leadership with bright spots where people are role models and, some brilliant jerks? And we all know about brilliant jerks. Those are the people that everybody says, oh, they're so brilliant. If they leave, we have to keep them at all costs, but they're really toxic. And they create toxic cultures and toxic environments. So where would you guys say your leadership falls?
Looks like the majority have inconsistent leadership with the bright spots and the hot spots.
Yeah. And that's so interesting because we've done this survey around the world in all sorts of different organizations, and that is the common answer. So, we really still have a lot of work to do around leadership and really helping leaders transform from being command control to really being about others and not about the self. And, it's easy to say, but it's very, very hard to do. So let's go to the next slide. Which is after the poll.
And also, everybody, if you check your chat, I have sent the PDF to you.
Great,
so
that's really good. So talking about culture, and I just talked about that a few minutes ago, but before it was really about problems, now it's about possibilities. And again, it's pulling together positive people. Now, if you have inconsistent leaders, you're not going to have a culture that's about possibilities. You may have pockets of it, but you're not going to have places where people really are enabled to come together to really create the future. And before, as I said, it was about performance, and now it's about individuality. Places where people feel that they can belong. And before, we were all about profits. And, I love this one because most companies will say, oh, we're really not about profit. We're about innovation. We're about customer service, all of this other kind of stuff. But when you really peel back the onion, and I'd like all of you to reflect on your organizations, and when you really peel back the onion, what is it that really drives the decision making in your organization? And I would posit that it is underlying more about profit than it is anything else. I mean, Wells Fargo, I'm sure you all know about Wells Fargo, got dinged already once on insurance policies. The woman got kicked out of the organization. They clawed back some money. They lost some reputation, but then they went and did it again. And their culture is one about money, not about the customer and not about the profit, which is one of the reasons why people love Amazon, because Amazon, regardless of whatever you say about Amazon or Jeff Bezos, it delivers the customer promise, and it is branded for that, and everybody knows that, and everybody works in that direction. So let's talk about what you see as your organization cultures or the cultures that you have around you. Is it guarded? Do people really say what they think? Or do they kind of skirt around the issues? And do leaders allow and accept toxic, blaming, aggressive behaviors from people in their organizations? Are leaders calling other people names? Are they treating people with disrespect? Are they undermining other people's success to make themselves look better? And is that tolerated? Or do they walk the talk? Do they live the values of their organization? Which, by the way, values are the underpinnings of culture. And we all have it. In the 20th century, you've probably seen them. They were laminated. They were all up on the wall. And, every company had the same ones. And, we're collaborative and we work as a team and all that stuff. But when you pulled back the onion again, there were no collaborative behaviors on the part of leaders. There wasn't really innovation because people worked in silos. So where would you say your organizations are today, or what are the prevailing views that you all see?
Are we doing another poll, or are we asking?
I thought we were doing another poll, but we can ask. I do. Some people's comments are coming up and saying, yeah, in a toxic culture, it is very hard to retain people. And, I always say to people, how do you know if you have one or two, 0.1 or 0.2 going on in your organization? One, you have high turnover, voluntary turnover. Two, it's hard to retain people. Three, your employee engagement scores are tough. Four, you have people there that are short-lived. They come in, they do what they have to do to learn, and then they leave. So there are lots of ramifications for having really toxic cultures. So just quickly, can we poll on this, Heather, or no?
We can chat on it. So, okay. And the chat is live, and folks are really, a lot of people want your book, and also a lot of people are into this topic, Linda.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of work on this particular area, and I will tell you, if you have leaders that allow other leaders to not exhibit the behaviors of the values, they have just said to everybody in the organization, it's okay. If you're destructive, that's fine. We tolerate that. And what I always say to leaders is, who you hire and who you promote speaks volumes about you. And if you hire people that are toxic, if you turn the other way, if you promote them because of short-term personal gain, then you have just said to everybody in the organization that that's who you are. And you have to look in the mirror. So I always say, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I want to make sure I get folks' comments in here. If I look at just picking up exactly from where you were, looking in the mirror, you've got everybody looking in the mirror right now.
Yep.
And I quite honestly only see a few we walk the walks. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a lot of questions, Linda, about, and so now what, right? You have a lot of people impacted by this.
Yeah.
One question is, how do you stop workplace toxicity from passing from one person to another that ends up hurting the organization and employees? And I think we could, just because that's a great question. I don't know, Linda, could you address that for a second?
Yeah, I definitely can address that. And I think I saw some comments float in here, and that's why we deliberately started with leadership. Because if you have leadership that don't believe in the values of the organization, and if you have leadership that's toxic itself, then my advice to people is find another organization, because it's not going to change. Leaders drive the culture, and there's no question about that. Now, that said, that doesn't mean if you're a leader of a particular unit, division, function, and you have the power to influence those below you and influence the team and the people that you're working with, you can be a role model for the kind of culture that you want. But this is something that you have to work continually. And I'm just doing a session with a big healthcare company coming up, and the key is to face into the culture that you have. And I'm a big proponent of getting the facts, man. Get the data, get the data, get the data. I don't want a lot of people's hunches of what they think the culture is. And I usually start with the key question of, what's your strategy? Which everybody will be able to, some, I can't say everybody, a lot of people really don't know their strategy, by the way. But if they have a strategy, what kind of culture do you need? And then the next question after that is, how do you know if your leaders are exhibiting that? What kind of behaviors do you want? And then you go in and you find out what currently exists. And you do that through, there's a variety of survey instruments that you can use. And once you've gotten that data, you say, what kind of culture is absolutely essential, and you compare the two. And it helps leaders understand, wow, I had no idea we were doing this. Most people are not coming into work today to create a toxic or negative organization. That they're not clear on what the behaviors are that are getting in the way of their own innovation and their own success. I mean, that's why coaches are so successful, because they really help people see what they're doing that is disruptive to the organization and holding the organization back. But I think it's the data that's really essential, and then keeping your, and then keeping your finger on the pulse of the organization, not just thinking it's a one and done, but constantly monitoring, checking, rewarding, looking at who you're rewarding, looking at your human resource systems, looking at who is on succession plans, and looking at that whole sort of training, leadership development component, and making sure that they're all aligned and they're all moving in the same direction. And that's essential. And you really, like any other situation, you need to really take regular pulse checks. Leaders need to be out there. If they're talking nothing else but two things, one is, I guess it's three things. One is, where's the strategy? Where are we headed? What's our purpose? Which gets us to the next point here. What are the behaviors that we expect of people, and how are we behaving? And three, what are the cultural elements that are important to our success? What do we want to be known for? What do we want to be branded for? What's the culture that we want our customers to say, this is this company? And those are the three things, honestly, that's the most important thing that leaders can do. And yes, profitability goes without saying. That's the bedrock. I mean, you have to be profitable, but that's the bedrock. Are there other questions about that, or other thoughts that people have?
Linda, the chat is blowing up. So what I want to do is let you continue on, because some of the questions are going to be covered in your content.
Okay.
Yeah, so Linda says you have a hot topic. You are on fire.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. So the next big area is purpose. And if we could bring up the next slide from that, that'd be great. But if not, that's... So why I have this bullseye with the heart? You know, we used to work from the head. And, a lot, even Tom Friedman was writing a lot of stuff about this, that the head, we didn't want to hear about hard things in the workplace. We didn't want to hear about relationships in the workplace. We didn't want to hear about, what people cared about in the workplace. We didn't want to hear about empathy. Well, we used to talk about empathy, but, we did training programs on that. The truth of the matter is, people today, people entering the workplace, people staying in the workplace, are not about, improving a process or making a widget that doesn't really make a difference. Today's workforce is really about purpose. What are we doing that's making a difference and building human capacity? It goes back to that ethics question. If you're doing stuff that's not helping people advance and humans advance and build human capability, what are you doing? And I'll tell you a great story. I love this story. It's another woman I met in one of my travels. And actually, she's written a couple of books on this. And, she said she was a sales rep for a major pharmaceutical company. And you know what her purpose was, meeting sales goals, sales quotas. I mean, we all identify with that. But that was meaningless until one day she ran into this woman who had diabetes and was needing to get some more of the medication and couldn't. And it was coming up on a major weekend like this weekend. And she finally realized she jumped through hoops to get this diabetes medication to this woman who frankly couldn't afford it, and who there were a whole bunch of circumstances around it. And all of a sudden she stepped back and she said, you know what? I realized why I do the job that I'm doing. I do this job because I want to keep people healthy and keep people alive. That is my purpose, and that's what I'm here for, and that's why I'm invested in these drugs and getting them to people. And it changed the whole way that she thought about herself. She thought about her job. And by the way, her numbers came roaring in. And that doesn't mean you have to be a senior person to think about purpose or a salesperson. Anybody fly through the Charlotte airport, it's busy, it's harried. You go into the women's room in the Charlotte airport, there's women in there who are keeping that airport bathroom beautifully clean. They have mints in there. They have anything that you may need. And you know what? This one woman said to me as I was leaving, I just want to make your travel a little bit easier and a little nicer. And that was their purpose, the people that were cleaning the bathrooms. So everybody has a purpose, and every organization has a purpose. And that is the compelling piece of the heart. This is what pulls people forward. This is what makes people excited about coming to work. This is what makes people want to participate in your organization, your team, your department, whatever it is. And I think the question I would like to ask you guys, which I ask a lot of people, and I've asked myself actually, what is your purpose? Because organizations can have purposes, but what is your personal purpose? Why do you come to work every day? What is it that's the compelling heart of the job that you do? And you don't need to answer that, but it's an important question to answer. And often when I ask leaders this, I get that deer in the headlight kind of look, because they've never really thought maybe about their values. They've thought about, what their mission and vision is. And it's always something, relatively fluffy. But what deep down is the purpose? What's your why of your existence? And I see somebody coming up from, I love advancing everyone's career. I mean, what I love is making workplaces where people can thrive. That is what turns me on. That is why I do what I do. And some other webinar, I'll tell you the story of how I got into that, but we don't have time today. So purpose is critical, and heart is critical. And we need more heart in what we do personally, what we do as teams, and what we do as organizations. And by the way, for those of us that are hiring millennials, they are looking for that purpose. They don't want to make a widget that's better. They want to work on clean water projects, getting medication to people in the third world, enabling people to have tests that they wouldn't normally be able to have, helping people in through their old age, all of those kinds of things. So I say to you after this webinar, no matter what job you have, no matter what role you're playing, write down your purpose and remind yourself of that every single day. And then ask yourself this next question. Is what I'm doing today and what I did today, at the end of the day, did I live my purpose? And did I behave in a way that demonstrated my purpose and that lived the values? And those are two very important questions. So let's go to the next, which is diversity. And I love this one. I guess we put inclusion in here because you know what? We've been working on this diversity issue for years. And we all know that it really hasn't advanced it the way it should have. You know, you still walk into major corporations, and I'm sure it's the case with yours, most of yours, is that there are still men at the top of the house. And the top layer is all men. But the truth of the matter is that the workforce, and those people, and if you stood at the front door of your organization, you would see that you probably have one of the most diverse populations coming in. And the world is going there. It is going to be increasingly more diverse. And homogeneous organizations are just not going to be the way of the future. They're not that way today. And when I was head of the diversity for Payne Weber, way back, I mean, I would stand at the door and look at everyone coming in. And the question wasn't that we didn't have diverse talent. We did. The problem was we didn't have diverse talent beyond a certain point. And I'm saying to you that that's probably still the case, and that needs to change. But here's where it goes back to. What's your purpose? What's your culture? Do you have a culture where people feel a sense of belonging? Because we used to be, oh, we have to have diversity and we have to have, quotas and all this other kind of stuff. Well, that worked to a certain extent, and it got us to where we were. And then it's got to be inclusive. Well, just because somebody is being included doesn't mean that you listen to them, doesn't mean that you respect them, does not mean that you're seeking out their input, doesn't mean that you make them feel a valued part. But when somebody belongs, it doesn't matter who they are, what they look like, what religion they are, what side of the tracks they came from, what country they're hailing from, because now with the internet, it's very hard to know sometimes. But they feel like they really belong in the conversation and in the decision making. And that is a cultural and leadership issue. And if you have people that don't feel like they belong, you're going to have a really hard time in this next century. Now, we do have a couple of polling questions here, and let's talk about it because we don't have it into a poll. But, a lot of people have affirmative action plans, so I wouldn't be surprised if you did. But, do you value and seek out differences and ensure that everybody feels that they belong on the team? And I'll tell you a really quick story. It was a Texas town actually on the border of the Texas and Mexico border. And there are obviously a lot of Hispanic people that live in that town. And the town rallied around this one family that was actually going to get deported. And they said, oh, no, these people, we love these. These people are part of our community. They belong here. And the family was so astonished. They felt like they belonged, but they could not believe that people would really rally around them for them to be able to stay. Now, I don't know what the upshot of the final story is, but creating that sense of belonging is absolutely incredible. And I'll just give you a couple of quick hints. Look at your own circle of trust. Who are the people that you really trust? And how diverse is that circle? And then look at, who you hang out with most of the time. And then ask yourself, the people that are outside that circle of trust or that are acquaintances, what do you know about them? And the biggest way to create a sense of belonging is having a conversation. To ask them what they value. To ask them what their purpose is. To ask them, what are their family challenges that are of great concern? And let's see those polling questions again. It looks like most of you are in that sense of belonging space, which is really, really great. When I ask this question around the world, we get a lot of only the strong survive. And I still think that is probably a pretty significant number of organizations. If you have a toxic culture, where everybody's competing with each other, people are operating in silos, you go to a meeting and only certain people's ideas are valued. This is a place where only the strong survive. And I think there's a lot more, I know there's a lot more of that than anything else. So the next factor after diversity is really relationships. And, this one I love as well. I love them all, but how do you build relationships? We used to talk about teams. So a leader would have his or her team, and usually those people got along well with the leader or didn't, depending upon the kind of leader that person was. But they had an intact unit, and that's not the case going forward. The case going forward is that organizations, and I said this before, are going to be flat. There's going to be much less hierarchy. There's going to be bleeding across organizational lines. People are going to be working based upon the relationship they have with that particular project or that particular piece of work. And if you start, Rob Cross, I'm sure you've seen or maybe have seen some of his work, but he studies networks and organizations. And that is where things are really going to be, and they are today, frankly, that there are go-to people in your organization, and they may not even work for you. They may work for somebody else, or they may be in another part of the organization, but they're the go-to person. They're your leaders of the future, and you need to know who those people are. And you need to create opportunities for people to network across boundaries based upon what it is that they're working on, and create opportunities where people are allies at work, not working in finger pointing in silos from other parts of the organization. And I propose to you that silos is still a pretty significant way that the traditional hierarchical organization is working. And I see a lot of people come up with these words, agile. It's going to be very difficult in an organization that has a toxic culture, leaders who are command and control, is not clear on its ultimate underlying purpose, to have an agile organization where people come together on a topic, on a possibility together, on an innovation together, and work collaboratively and learn together if we have not built this kind of sense of collaboration and relationship within an organization. And I think here's a series of questions, and I actually like these questions. We used to say in the 20th century, business is not personal. It's business. Get your job done. Keep your nose down. Keep your nose clean. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Get your work done. We'll pay you. You give us what we say. Go home after that. And there were turf wars in politics, and frankly, we have a lot of that today. But now business is kind of personal. And we are really seeing that the very successful companies are those companies that strive to be allies. And I have a great guy that I do a lot of work with, and I won't say the name of the company, but he's the CEO. And he said to me one time, you know what? Every time I hire somebody, that becomes an ally for me. And maybe they won't stay past the innovation or the project that I'm working, that I hired them for. But you know what? If I treat them well, if I treat them like an ally, if I help them find their next job, even if it isn't in my own company, I know I have an ally somewhere else that I may need to tap into at some point as I'm moving forward in whatever it is. So it's a different mindset. It's not a compete to kill mindset. It's a compete to be successful on your possibilities and your innovation, and using people as allies and friends to be agile about how you work. And by the way, you probably all know this, but we're moving much more into a gig economy. People are going to be coming in and out of work. They're going to be working on projects. They may work for your company for a year and a half. They may have a tour of duty. They may work there for 3 years. And then they may move on to another project somewhere else. And we have to get on with it and get used to it. And so many people are still stuck in those old psychological models and have business practices and HR practices, human people practices that are really keeping them from being agile about their folks. Obviously, statement 3 is a siloed, hierarchical kind of organization. So relationships are absolutely going to be critical. So let's go to the next slide, please. And finally, we did include technology here. And this is so interesting. This is, again, the man and the machine, and the integration of humans and technology and mechanics. And, they're saying that the next 50 years, people will not have dementia. They will have figured out something to put in the brain so that nobody has dementia. Parkinson's will be a thing of the past. Yes, people will die. They will live into their hundreds, early hundreds is the projection, but they won't die of the things that people currently die of now. They will just, have a peaceful death at some point, not to be talking about death particularly, but technology is something that is here to stay. And we say resistance is futile. And I know it's mind-boggling. When we do these survey questions around the world, this is another one that comes up as mixed. Leadership comes up as mixed. Culture comes up as mixed. And technology comes up as mixed. And I love the questions because the first one is the government adapts new technology faster than we do. Um, and what people are saying is that, yes, we have technology, but we see it languish and unused because we don't consider the human interface. And so see these questions. There are poll questions here for you. So where do you guys fall around technology? What's your biggest area, do you think?
So far, early results are definitely we love cool new technology.
Oh, that's great. And we're early adapters. That's great. Well, you are the groups here are the outliers, because usually people fall in the we introduce technology only to see it languish and unused because people just don't adapt. And particularly in big companies who've been around a long time, a lot of people love their legacy, their legacy systems. But I say to folks, I'm doing a column, HR for technology, for technologists, and what I say to people is what you really need to do is, as new technology comes down the pike, face into it, learn it, test it, try it. Don't shy away from it. Constantly push yourself to get engaged with the new technological advances. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of people around you who say, "Oh, that's beyond me. I just can't do that anymore. I just give up." The second you say that is the second you're done, because there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that is going to be done in this century, starting from today forward, that is not based on technology. And every company, digital technology, every company is going to be a technology company. And so if you want to thrive, you're going to have to be engaged with that. So this goes to sort of the next piece about people, because in the book we talk about what do you have to do from a human resource perspective, and learning and development has got to adjust, it's got to change. You can't just have your top 20% go to your training programs, and you've got to put systems in place where everybody can learn and where you're creating curious learners. I had my boss actually, who was the head of human resources for GE a very long time, and he was on my radio show, and I love him dearly. He's retired now, and he said, because GE has rethought their top 20 and 70/10. And he said the only people that love the top 20 were the people that were in the top 20, and that's really true. And he said everyone else was, and I'll put it in quotes. You put the word in there that you like, but didn't like it. And he was really right, and it angered some people. Why am I not in the top 20? And if you have a room full of people and you ask them to close their eyes and you say, how many of them you think you're in the top 20% of your company? Do you know just about everybody will put their hand up? And again, this is something we've done all over the world. So why are we looking at just those top 20%? Why are we putting people in week-long training programs and not engaging things more like what Robin is doing here, where people can get what they need? And this ought to become part of companies' libraries, of companies' technology offerings, so people can jump into these things, learn what they need to learn. LinkedIn has done something, I don't know where it's gone at this point, but they've done something where people can connect together immediately on real-time learning issues if they're confronted with a situation they don't know what the answer is, and it's immediate. So this is really important. So the last part here is just some highlights of what's going to be going on in your organizations. Is that there are going to be people working till they're 75, and that's probably going to creep up. People are going to be taking sabbaticals. People are going to be doing gig work. People are going to be working more on projects. So looking at resumes, you can't look at resumes the same way. You have to look at resumes from what is it that people do? What did they learn? What are their skill sets, and how will that contribute to our organization? And when you look at, who are the people in your organization that are really moving the ball forward, you have to look at it from a strategic perspective, not a top 20 perspective. You have to say, who are the people that have the skills to do the jobs that we need done today, and who are the people with development who can really knock the ball out of the park, and who are sort of the staple pillars of this organization, like your leaders, etc. And what do we need, like your lawyers and your accountants and those kind of functional people, and how do you keep them aligned with the strategy and the values, and who are the people, and it's probably a very small group of people who are not going to be successful in your workplace and in your organization. And that's how you ought to look at your workforce, and then put in place real-time and immediate stuff where people can learn, and re-leverage things like apprenticeships, internships. Just can't be for 10 people. It's got to be for a lot of people. You got to go into high schools and get those kids, because you don't know what the jobs are going to be the next 5-10 years. You don't know what they're going to look like. There's jobs that are going to be created we haven't even thought about yet, and there's tons of jobs that are going away. But people need to come into workplaces, and workplaces need to be the next big learning and development environment for people to help build human capacity. So here's my final tip. This is what I say to leaders. If you really want to be the leader of today and tomorrow, you want to build a culture, you really want to help people align around their purpose, you want to connect with people on a relationship level that makes them feel like they belong in your organization, you have to do these 5 things. You have to alter your behavior. And the first one is you have to ask and stop telling. Ask people what they think. Ask people what they're working on. Ask people what they'd like to do next, but ask. Ask why they did something. Ask what they're thinking about. Because as we become more global and as we become more diverse, people communicate in different ways. And so by asking, you seek understanding and you learn. And the next is you have to listen. And maybe you have to ask again because you're not clear. And then you have to think about what somebody said. Does it make sense? And then you have to respond. If it makes sense, you understand it, you've asked, you've listened, you've thought about it, do something. Maybe invite them to the next team meeting. Maybe put them on a different project. Maybe help them get another job. Maybe help them with a family issue that they're dealing with. Maybe put in place a different practice that might help that person thrive. And then repeat. And if you follow those 5 steps and behaviors, you will create an organization where people feel that they can belong. So this final slide here is just some things that I think everybody in the human resource area must do. And you've got to really, and I've talked about this, you've got to rethink human development. I mean, we're constantly in an upskill environment, and that's going to be the wave of the future. And you need to put in place people in your organization that become curious learners, and it becomes part of your fabric, part of your DNA. And leaders need to have that deep emotional connection with the people that they lead. And without that, they're not going to get people's hearts. It's important. Business is personal, and leadership is personal. And you got to redesign organizational structures. Layers, take them out. Look at who are the people that have influence in your organization. Make them the focus of groups that work across organizations. Co-create flexible structures. When you're putting a new possibility or innovation project, talk about how do we put a structure in place here that makes sense for what we're trying to do? And how do we make organizations more fluid? Because big companies, and it's going to take about 20 or 30 years, are going to transition less from the bricks and mortar hierarchy and more to much more fluid, adaptive, and more agile organizations. And the final piece is look at your processes, policies, and procedures, and what's getting in the way and what's from the 20th century that just simply does not make sense in this century at all. And every generation is smarter than the last just because they know more. We have more stuff, they can learn more. And so why are we doing things that were built on, the majority generation of the past? We have to build things that are for the majority of the generations coming forward. So that's really what I have to say to you. And so I'd love to know what's on your mind, and I really hope we have time for that. So what's on your mind, guys?
Thank you, Linda. That was amazing. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I personally like the part that business is no longer, just business. It's personal. I always felt it was personal. If I'm putting, blood, sweat, and tears in what I do, it does become a personal issue. So for me, I really enjoyed that aspect.
Good. Well, I would love to talk more to people, and I think, Robin, you guys all know how to get a hold of me, and if you have thoughts or ideas, I'd love to hear them, and I'd love to hear some of your experiences and stories around what I've talked about. So thank you, because it was a real privilege. I wish I was standing in front of all of you, but I know that's not possible. So.
Brilliant.
Robin, you're muted.
Oh yeah, Robin, you're muted.
Brad shares an office with her, so they can hear it.
It's a very thin wall. It's big. There's no privacy, even though there's a wall there. So, and when Robin's trying to get back in here, as you guys know, we went a little bit over with the wonderful and great content that Linda was going over. So we will be emailing you if you are one of the winners of the Summerland books. Oh, hey, look who's here.
There's always a way.
Here.
Okay, there's always a way. Okay, I have 2 systems. They both failed. This is system number 3.
Yeah. And thank you, Heather, for being so flexible about the slides. I so appreciate it, and I think it worked after we worked through the glitch.
Yeah, no, Linda, you were on a roll, and so we went longer. I didn't want to stop you. I know you're traveling all over the world and really hard to get, so thank you very much. We're going to, I'm going to announce some winners here, okay? Then we're going to close the recording. Then we're going to open the recording back up if we can to just do like our backstage debrief, okay? So I couldn't resist. You guys won me. And so now Linda I have to buy more books from Linda than just 3.
Good to hear.
So,
I appreciate that.
and we'll email you too. But today's winners from the chat, the lively chat, were Deborah Dieters. Yay, Deborah!
Yay!
And Bruce Hayes. Woo! Bruce Hayes. Jason Walker. Way to go, Jason. Thank you for the links that you provided. You gave us some really good data, and we'll be sure to save the chat and share it with you guys. Richard Gaffey. Richard, what can we say? You're the man. Always have been, always will be. We really love you. Mary Wood, thank you very much. Mary, you're a winner today. Give it up for Mary Wood. And
let's hear for Mary.
Darlene Evans. I felt, Darlene, from your comments that you would personally really love Linda's book, as we all do. So congratulations, everybody. Those are our winners for today, live winners from today's raffle. And just to close out, Linda does speak. We are talking about maybe potentially creating a course with Linda, but she speaks, she consults, she coaches, she's on the fast track to becoming a world-renowned author over and above all her other accomplishments. So she already is a world-renowned author, but authors can keep going up and up. Those authors, they're pretty competitive people.
You're absolutely right, Robin. Right.
So, hey, it's been our pleasure to have you today. Thank you very much. And we're going to go ahead and close up, look for your comments, and then let's see if Linda, stay with us, and let's see if we can actually open up for a backstage really quick.